Unpack this and dive right into Fred Sirieix's deeply personal quest.
Okay.
You know Fred Sirieix. He's built quite a career, hasn't he? Started in that rigorous, very disciplined world of high-end restaurants.
Mastering everything, plating the perfect wine pairing,
Yeah.
definitely appreciating the finer things in life, as he puts it.
And then he becomes this beloved household name on television. First dates, obviously, the ultimate Cupid.
Connecting couples, yeah. And then things like Strictly Come Dancing, I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here.
Yeah.
He's really done the rounds.
He genuinely has earned that title. You see it in a lot of the sources. The nation's favorite Frenchman.
And that title, The Nation's Favorite Frenchman, it really speaks volumes about his unique identity, doesn't it?
It does. Because he was born and raised entirely in France. Limoges, Icamoy, near Lom.
But he's lived in the UK for, 32 years now?
That's right, 32 years. Longer than he actually spent in France.
And his children, including his daughter, Andreas Benellini Sirieix, the Olympic diver.
Who won bronze for Britain in 2024. Amazing achievement.
Right. They genuinely call both countries home. So this lived experience of duality, this deep connection to two distinct cultures, it's clearly a central thread in his family's story.
And you can really see how that plays into his motivation for tracing his roots. His daughter, Andrea, actually, she put her finger on it.
What'd she say?
She described a duality within his heart. Fred himself talked about yearning for deeper foundations, needing to understand where he came from, like finding missing pieces.
Makes sense. Searching for roots.
And interestingly, he also saw it as a way to connect with his own mother more profoundly, understanding her history through their shared ancestry.
Ah, that's interesting.
Yeah, he mentioned feeling this poignant sense of missed conversations with his grandparents. A regret, I think, many of us can probably relate to when we think about our own elders.
Oh, absolutely. That feeling of, I wish I'd asked more. It often leaves these specific mysteries lingering in families, doesn't it?
Definitely. And Fred's family was no different. He went into this journey with some very clear questions he wanted answered.
Like what specifically?
Well, first, there was his great-grandfather, Leonard Bordas, the Enigma, fought in World War I, but like so many of that generation, just complete silence about it.
Never uttered a single word. What horrors must he have seemed to be rendered so silent? That was the question.
Yeah, exactly. Then there was this almost mythical family legend about his paternal grandparents. René Bordas Pepe called him, and Geneviève Charrier, Meme.
Ah, yes, the wartime romance story.
Right. The story passed down was so dramatic. They met during World War II. René supposedly escapes from a forced labor camp.
And Geneviève, driven by love, crosses most of France from the occupied zone to the free zone just to be with him. I mean, it sounds incredible.
It truly sounds like something ripped from the pages of a wartime romance novel, doesn't it? And if those mysteries weren't enough.
There was more.
Yeah, the heartbreaking question of Genevieve's own childhood. She was an orphan from the age of just 11.
11 years old. Wow. Imagine navigating that period so young, so alone.
It's hard to fathom. And Fred's initial visit to his parents in Icamoy, looking through old family photos, it really brought these mysteries to life for him.
Did he find anything specific in the photos?
He described his Pipe and Meme's wedding photo, how they had these very austere faces, almost never smiling. It just deepened his curiosity about the hidden struggles they must have gone through.
So he really wanted to separate the fact from the family myth.
Exactly. Find out what really happened, especially about Geneviève crossing France to reach René. That's where we begin this deep dive.
It's these deeply personal details that make history so relatable, isn't it? When you connect the grand sweep of events to individual lives.
It completely transforms your understanding. So let's get into that first compelling mystery, the wartime romance.
Okay, Chapter 1, René and Geneviève in World War II.
Absolutely. And the setting itself is crucial here. We're in France, 1939 to 1940. René is a young, vibrant 21-year-old soldier.
And he finds himself in what the French called the drôle de guerre, the phony war.
Right. War had been declared in September 39, but for 8 long months, there was this eerie, almost absurd calm on the Western Front.
Soldiers mobilized, waiting, almost bored, doing drills, not fighting. It created this dangerous, false sense of security.
Which was about to be brutally shattered. René's regiment was deployed in northern France, saw very little action during this tense quiet.
And then, boom, May 1940, that deceptive peace just explodes into this furious, lightning-fast German invasion. The sources call it an onslaught.
The French defenses, even the Maginot Line in places, just collapsed with shocking speed. It became known as The debacle.
which literally means a rout, a downfall. It captured the profound collapse, not just military, but almost spiritual, of French morale.
German aircraft, the Stukas, the tanks, the infantry. They just overwhelmed the French army. Chaos, confusion, despair everywhere.
And Fred was visibly shocked, wasn't he, to learn the true extent of the devastation, that René's regiment suffered significant destruction, heavy casualties.
Yeah, he'd always thought his grandfather was just captured without much of a fight. It really shows how much of the brutal reality of war gets softened or unspoken in families over time.
You can only imagine the sheer terror and the disorienting speed of that advance for the soldiers on the ground.
Absolutely. So René becomes one of about 1.5 million French soldiers swept up, taken prisoner during the Battle of France.
1.5 million, that number is just staggering.
It is. And his fate leads him to Frontstalag 150 in St. Florentin, a German POW camp deep in occupied Burgundy.
And the conditions, horrific doesn't even begin to cover it, based on the descriptions.
No. This camp, designed for maybe 1,000 men, was crammed with 13,000 prisoners. Fred described it as absolute mayhem.
Extreme overcrowding, rampant disease, exhaustion, constant gnawing starvation, just surviving day by day.
The Germans, though, ever pragmatic, quickly realized the value of these prisoners.
As a labor force, right? With so many French farmers captured, the fields were untended.
Exactly, threatening widespread starvation. So they put the POWs to work in agriculture, cheap labor.
And René, like thousands of others, was sent out to work on local farms, potentially in Coulanges-sur-Yonne.
Which, incredibly, just happened to be Genevieve's hometown.
Talk about a twist of fate, their paths converging amidst the grim backdrop of occupation.
So here's where the spark ignites, under the most improbable circumstances imaginable.
René, a POW, forced labor on a farm. Genevieve, a local civilian trying to live under occupation. How did they even meet?
The sources suggest it was likely over food, a basic human need, often the most common contact point between prisoners and civilians. Farmers might offer scraps, share meals.
You can almost picture it, can't you? Brief, stolen moments, maybe flirtatious looks exchanged, shy smiles across a field.
Small, illicit gifts, maybe. A piece of fruit, a bit of bread, hidden from the guards.
A relationship blossoming incredibly under the watchful eyes of enemy forces in grim occupied France.
The courage, the discretion required, because, as the sources note, even showing open joy could be dangerous then.
Yet, love found a way, as it often does.
Which brings us to the critical turning point in their story, the moment of profound bravery, the escape.
René had been captive for several months, enduring the POW life. Then he gets devastating news.
From Mr. Billy, right,
Yeah.
the owner of the farm where he was working. A compassionate figure, it seems.
Yes, Mr. Billy tells him he's scheduled to be deported to Germany the very next day.
Which was essentially a death sentence for his hopes of going home. Forced labor deep inside the Reich. Little chance of survival or return.
So this news prompts an immediate, incredibly high-stakes decision. René decides he has to escape. Right then.
An incredibly risky move. You mentioned earlier historical records show less than 5% of French prisoners even attempted escape.
Because the consequences were so severe.
Brutal. If caught, shot on sight. No trial.
And anyone who helped him, anyone, faced immediate arrest, imprisonment, deportation to Germany. A fate almost as bad.
Imagine the courage, the desperation. Fred was deeply moved, wasn't he, when he saw the actual German document confirming René's escape?
Overwhelmed with pride, yes. The document confirming escape in November 1940. Proof.
Now, there's no written record of Genevieve's direct involvement, is there?
No smoking gun, so to speak. But the strong possibility, given their connection, the danger to René, it's highly likely she played a pivotal role.
It just makes sense, emotionally and practically. She would have done anything to help the man she loved avoid deportation.
That act of bravery, both René's and likely Genevieve's, set the stage for their future.
After his harrowing escape, René makes his way back to Limoges, an arduous journey through occupied territory.
And Genevieve, driven by love, commitment, this indomitable spirit, she undertakes her own courageous journey.
This is the crossing the whole of France part of the legend.
Exactly. Traversing from the German-occupied zone, likely meeting illegal border crossings, into the nominally free zone to join him in Limoges.
The sources consistently call it an incredible love story, a testament to her fierce determination.
It's a powerful reminder that even in the darkest times, human connection compels unimaginable acts of courage.
It absolutely is. What a triumph of love against such overwhelming adversity.
Their reunion, though joyful, must have still been fraught with danger. Life in occupied France, curfews, rationing, constant fear.
But their love only grew stronger, meeting in secret, cherishing those brief moments.
Until liberation in 1944 and the end of the war in Europe in May 45, finally hope arrived.
With peace restored, they were free. They married in late 1945, a small, hopeful church ceremony.
And Fred, looking at their wedding photo, saw more than just ancestors. He saw a picture of hope and renewal after so much turmoil.
He even said their story felt worthy of an episode of First Dates, bringing his professional life full circle.
An extraordinary tale. Love defying the odds.
Truly captivating. What an emotional discovery for Fred, understanding the heroism and romance behind their quiet lives.
But that quiet strength, that resilience, it wasn't just born in them, was it? It runs deeper.
To a generation scarred by an even earlier, equally brutal conflict. Let's turn now to Chapter 2. Leonard Bordas, Fred's great-grandfather, Renee's father.
Right. Leonard. Described by the family as a tough, hard man.
He died just 3 months after Fred was born in 1972, so Fred never knew him personally.
But the profound family mystery surrounded his experiences in the First World War, 1914 to 1918.
He just never talked about it. Fred's mother confirmed, never said a single word, a common, almost universal response to that level of trauma.
The Great War left a mark that many survivors simply couldn't articulate.
Imagine trying to piece that together when the person themselves chose silence. So profound.
Fred discovered Leonard served in the 63rd Infantry Regiment, a local regiment from Limoges.
And his deployment in August 1914 threw him immediately into the crucible, the Battle of the Frontiers.
In the Argonne region, near Valmy, on France's eastern border, a massive, brutal, disorienting early conflict, traditional warfare meeting industrial killing.
What's crucial to grasp about that early phase, the fighting was different, wasn't it?
Utterly different, primitive, mobile warfare. The sources mention horrifying bayonet combat, hand-to-hand struggles, seeing the whites of the eyes of the enemy.
Horrifyingly personal and lethal. The casualty rates were astronomical.
Around 100,000 French soldiers died in just the first 6 weeks.
100,000. So to survive that initial bloodbath required immense luck, immense grit. Leonard was among the few.
But the nature of the war shifted dramatically by late 1914. Massed artillery, rapid-firing machine guns.
Made open combat suicidal, so troops were forced to dig in.
Creating those vast, intricate, utterly dehumanizing trench lines that scarred France for the next 4 years.
Fred actually went to see reconstructed trenches in Champagne,
Yep.
near where Leonard fought in 1415, trying to grasp the reality.
Trying to bridge that century of silence. Stepping into those reconstructions must have been profoundly sobering.
They found a soldier's letter from that time, didn't they?
Yes, unearthed by the researchers. It vividly described the conditions. Imagine being just 25 to 30 meters from the Germans.
So close you could hear their conversations, their coughing.
The letter recounts 5 days and nights without sleep, being stiff as a stick and in the mud, constant snow, unrelenting bombing after bombs.
A stark reminder. Leonard fighting two enemies. The Germans and the horrific weather. The cold, the mud, the sheer misery.
Survival itself was a constant, wearying battle against the elements and human endurance limits, especially in those freezing winters.
And Leonard's endurance didn't stop there. He served, he survived, through some of the most notorious, bloodiest battles after Champagne.
He was at Verdun, the meat grinder. 300 days and nights. 1 million Germans attacking 200,000 French. A pivotal, brutal French victory, but at unimaginable cost.
And the Somme as well. October 1916, another name synonymous with industrial slaughter.
The sources confirm Leonard literally saw the evolution of the First World War. He endured all the major, brutal battles from beginning to end.
His survival against those odds. It really resonated with Fred, connecting to the family's reputation for toughness.
He felt it was kind of in the blood, a strength forged in unimaginable conflict passed down.
And this discovery also had a profound impact on Fred's relationship with his own mother, didn't it?
Yes, that emotional call after learning about Leonard, his mother sent him a heartbreaking text message.
What did it say?
She revealed that Pépé, René, often went 3 weeks without saying a single word himself. And Leonard, his father, was not better.
Wow. That silence, that unspoken trauma, it clearly shaped their lives and Fred's mother's childhood.
This new understanding helped Fred connect with his mother empathetically, in a way he couldn't before, understanding the difficult childhood she had.
Growing up with parents and grandparents carrying these immense, unspoken burdens.
It's a powerful lesson, how history, even a century past, echoes through families, shaping personalities, communication, family life itself.
It truly is. Which brings us to our third and final chapter, delving even deeper into Fred's ancestral roots.
Uncovering unexpected connections to wine, more hardship, and the very beginnings of his family line. Threads stretching back centuries.
So Chapter 3. We circle back to Geneviève Charrier, Fred's maternal grandmother, her incredibly difficult start.
Right, the orphan. Losing her father, a WWI soldier, then her mother to the influenza pandemic, all by age 11 in 1919. Profound successive losses.
Hard to fathom. The sources reveal more about her parents' working lives, too. Her father, Edouard Charrier,
Was a cantonnier for the railway. Not just any worker. He maintained a specific section of track. Walking it daily, checking rails, stones.
on the critical Paris-Lyon-Marseille line, demanding vital work.
And her mother, Victoria Aron, was a garde barrière, a gatekeeper, living and working in the little house by the barrier, lifting it for trains.
It gives you a very specific image of their working-class life tied to the rhythm of the railway.
But here's where it gets really interesting and an absolute aha moment for Fred, I imagine.
Her wine connection.
Exactly. He uncovered that at least 3 generations of Genevieve's father's side, the Charrier lineage, back to 1768, were vignerons, winemakers.
In Burgundy, Fred's absolute favorite wine region.
For a man who built his career in fine dining, always recommending the perfect bottle, it was a delightful, almost poetic surprise.
The universe has a sense of humor.
It truly does. He couldn't help but chuckle, noting how a love of wine literally runs in his blood.
And the sources describe the traditional winemaking then, all done by hand.
Entirely. Pruning, harvesting, pressing. Small, family-run vineyards, often sending wine directly to Paris markets.
There was that poignant metaphor, too, wasn't there, about the soil.
Yes, from Benjamin Borna, a local winemaker Fred met. Poor soil often leads to finer wine because the vines have to dig deeper, work harder, producing more concentrated flavors.
A beautiful parallel to the resilience theme in Fred's family,
Oh.
extracting richness from hardship.
Precisely. But this deep-rooted winemaking tradition didn't last forever. Another major hardship intervened.
It ceased abruptly, catastrophically, because of
Phylloxera, the devastating blight, a tiny aphid-like insect accidentally imported from North America in the 1860s.
the vine louse. It attacks the root.
Yeah,
presume.
exactly. A silent subterranean killer. Wiped out entire vineyards, seemingly overnight. An unimaginable agricultural and economic catastrophe across France.
The statistics are shocking. Over 6 million acres destroyed.
Wiping out 3/4 of all French wine production. A national crisis. Thousands upon thousands of families, almost certainly including Fred Sirieix ancestors, lost everything.
Their livelihoods, their homes, their way of life, gone. Many forced to migrate, find new professions.
Yet once again, that pattern of resilience emerges. French winemakers had to find a solution.
Which involved grafting, right? Grafting French vines onto hardy American rootstock.
Correct. The American roots had evolved resistance. It was a monumental undertaking, a slow, painstaking recovery over decades.
But it demonstrates that uncanny familial pattern. Overcoming disaster, adapting, finding innovation born of necessity. Real grit.
Now, if you thought the discoveries ended there, think again. The deepest, perhaps most poignant root lies on Genevieve's mother's side.
Victoria Oyon's family, her grandparents, Gustave Ayon and Victorine d'Aubignac.
Fred found their marriage certificate from 1867 in the very town hall he visited, and it contained a profoundly moving detail.
Both were listed as, what was it? Élèves des Hospices de Paris.
Pupils of the Paris Hospice. Sounds rather grand, doesn't it? The reality was far, far grimmer.
Because the Paris Hospice was actually a state-run institution for
Enfants trouvés abandonnés orphelins. Found, abandoned, and orphaned children. Mostly illegitimate children from very poor, often single, mothers who simply couldn't cope.
a place of last resort. Children left there, sometimes hours after birth, just hoping they might survive.
The admission records for Gustave and Victorine are heartbreaking. Gustave left at 2 days old in 1839. Mother, a 46-year-old seamstress, likely too old, too poor.
And Victorine. Admitted on her birthday in 1847. Her mother died a month later from birth complications.
Suggesting Victorine was likely brought there by relatives or midwives, knowing the baby wouldn't survive otherwise.
And the conditions inside these hospices? Appalling.
Incredibly harsh. Crowded creches, 80 to 100 infants crammed into one unhygienic room, difficult feeding, poor hygiene.
And the mortality rate. Shocking. Isabelle Gricourt, the social historian, told Fred,
Roughly 60, sometimes even 70% of these children died within a year of admission.
70%. Imagine those impossible odds. stacked against them from their first breath.
So, for Gustav and Victorine to not only survive those horrifying conditions, but to actually thrive, live to adulthood, it's a testament to incredible luck, phenomenal resilience, immense personal strength.
And how did they meet? Another twist of fate.
It seems so. Both were sent, as was common practice for surviving infants, to wet nurses in the Auxerre region of Burgundy, hundreds of kilometers from Paris.
So they grew up in the same general area, unknowingly sharing this similar traumatic past, before eventually finding each other and marrying. Incredible.
Fred's visit to the abandoned site of the Paris hospice, that really brought it home for him.
Standing in the place where his 3 times great-grandparents were abandoned must have been profoundly sad, moving.
He reflected on the immense tragedy, the pain of his ancestors forced to leave their children, acknowledging the heartbreak for his 4th great-grandmothers who had no choice. Yet, despite those harrowing beginnings, Gustave and Victorine survived. Against all odds, they fell in love, married, carried on the family line.
It truly solidified Fred's profound sense of gratitude for their sheer will to survive, ensuring his own existence.
And that profound gratitude really is the overriding takeaway from Fred's entire extraordinary journey, isn't it?
It absolutely is.
Fred Sirieix's journey through his family history was clearly an emotional roller coaster, a real deep dive into his ancestral soul.
He experienced profound sadness, didn't he? For Leonard's silent trauma, for Genevieve's orphan childhood.
But also immense admiration for Renee and Genevieve's courage during the war, defying the odds.
And that delightful touch of joy, the surprise wine heritage, a playful nod from his ancestors.
He spoke of realizing the immense sacrifices, the sheer strength of those who came before, enduring war, loss, blight, abandonment.
It made him deeply reflective about his own comfortable, free life, connecting their hardships to his freedoms today, fostering real gratitude, real perspective.
He truly believes their struggles forged this powerful legacy of resilience in his family.
The core values that emerged, love, bravery, perseverance, that inherent toughness clearly etched into his family's bloodline, connecting him across centuries, a tangible identity.
And this isn't just personal for Fred, is it? It's something he intends to pass on.
A living legacy. He vowed to keep these memories alive, share more than just names and dates with his children, future grandchildren.
Wants them to understand this incredible inheritance of hope and identity. Appreciate the strength, the sacrifices that brought them here.
It's a profound responsibility and a gift to pass on the stories that shape who we are.
Fred Sirieix's family story is such a powerful, poignant reminder. History isn't just dates and battles. It's the deeply personal, profoundly human experiences that shape us across generations.
Influencing who we are today in ways we might never have imagined.
So think about this. What hidden stories, what untold tales of resilience and unexpected connections might lie within your own family, waiting to be uncovered?
Waiting to reveal the remarkable journey that brought you to where you are today, something to ponder.